Hi everyone! Maybe you clicked on this video because you want to plant some veggies in December. Or maybe you clicked on it because you don't think you can and you want to learn more. Well, I've got good news for you. You can still plant vegetables in December. Whether you're in the north and already wearing your snow boots, or whether you're in the south like we are here in Southern California and have plenty of sunshine and winters with little to no frost. We're going to kick this off with the most surprising crop that any gardener, no matter where you live, can start today. Let's get going. The first crop that every gardener can start in December are onions. And the reason why is because onions don't respond to temperature, they respond to hours of daylight. And by starting them in December, they have more time to grow leaves, which means bigger bulbs come June. Now, every single year, I swear I'm going to start my onions in December, and every single year I forget and don't get around to it. So I'm going to start them with you today so that by June, I've got some nice big onions and really good bragging rights. Now, the great thing about onions is you can start them indoors even as long as 4 or 5 months before you can get them planted outside. In fact, I've got to tell you something kind of embarrassing. I actually started these onions from seed last March, and you know what? I never got around to planting them in my garden last summer. And would you look at them? They're still actually growing in their 6-pack seed cells. So onions are super, super forgiving. Now I know they look a little bedraggled and not so great, but I could actually clean these onions up, pick off all the little dead parts, and still plant them outside now. So if you're itching to get something started, onions are definitely the crop for you. Now they're super easy to start from seed indoors. And the key to growing onions is you've got to grow the right onion type for your area. So if you live in the north, you want to grow long day onions because they start bulbing up when the hours of sunlight are 14 to 16 hours. And in the north, you definitely have long hours of sunlight in the late spring and summer. So grow those long day onions. If you live somewhere in the middle of the US, you want to grow intermediate onions. You can grow these in the south as well because they start bulbing up when you have hours of sunlight between 8 and 10 hours. In the south, like I am here in Southern California, you want to grow short day onions, which don't need as many hours of sunlight to bulb up. So grow the correct onions for the area that you live, and you'll be able to have nice, beautiful bulbs. So I'm just going to pop in some onion seeds here, and I've got onions of all different varieties and types in my onion seed collection. We're going to go ahead and plant some short day onions. Since I live here in Southern California, these are the yellow granics. Now, just because you live in the south doesn't mean you can't plant long day onions, but just keep in mind you're going to have the best results with the correct onion type for your area. So just sprinkle the seeds lightly here in the 6-packs. And the biggest mistake that most people make with onions is they cover them too heavily with soil. So just going to barely sprinkle a little bit of soil over the top. They're so easy to plant, and you're going to pop these in your house under grow lights. Keep them in kind of a cooler area, maybe around 65 or 70 degrees. And they only need about 12 hours under the grow light. You don't want to put them too long under the grow lights because then they start bulbing up too soon before you can get them planted outside. So gardeners, no matter where you are, get some onions started now in December so you have nice big onion bulbs in the summertime, and you'll be so glad you did. Now we're just going to pop up on the deck and talk about the first crop that you southern gardeners can plant right now. And you southern gardeners, don't stop planting because winter is the best time to be out in the garden. The days are cooler, there's less pests, gardening is just so much easier with fewer challenges. The only thing that you have to do is chase the sun and find the sunniest spot in your garden. And your secret weapon? Containers. Now you northern gardeners, don't think I've forgotten about you because at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about 2 of the fastest crops you can plant that actually grow better indoors than outside. So southern gardeners, the first crop you're going to want to plant right now are peas. They grow beautifully in a container, and the winter is the perfect time to plant them because the days are around 75 degrees or under. And even if you get a light frost wherever you live, the peas are going to do just fine. So southern gardeners, do yourself a favor and keep it simple. Once you pull out your tomatoes, all you have to do is keep your trellis in your container and pop in some pea seeds. I planted these maybe 6 weeks or so ago. Keep in mind, When the temperatures are cooler, things are going to grow slower and you're not getting quite as much sunlight in the wintertime. So very easy to plant. I've got 5 varieties in my pea seed collection, and one of my favorites all time is the Royal Snow Pea. They're going to germinate in about 7 to 10 days, and with a little bit of good weather and a little bit of gardening luck, you're going to be eating peas in about 8 to 10 weeks. And it's fun if you plant different varieties, different colors, and you can grab all my seed collections right now for our Black Friday sale. They're all priced at $7, $10, $15, and $20. So you definitely want to stock up for your winter and your spring garden. And thank you so much for supporting our seed shop. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of people make with peas is they plant them too deeply. They only need to be planted about 1 inch deep. So resist the urge to push them way down in the soil, and also resist the urge to overwater them, because pea seeds will rot fairly easily. So just keep them watered. I think I have my Mr. Landscaper drip irrigation set here to water for 3 minutes every 2 to 3 days. So it kind of just depends on how much sunlight you get in your garden. If you're in a spot that's really sunny and it's very hot, you might need to water them a little more often. So just monitor the watering and make sure you don't overwater, or your pea seeds will rot in the soil before they even get a chance to germinate. And you don't want to do that. Next up are root vegetables for you southern gardeners. And why December works for root vegetables is planting them in cold soil actually concentrates the sugars in the vegetable and makes them sweeter. So it's a great time of year to plant your carrots, your radishes, and your beets. Now I'm actually going to do a little test pull of some black nebula carrots from my fall garden seed collection that I planted actually in the summertime. And surprisingly enough, even with the heat we've had, they're growing really nicely. Now the wonderful thing I love about carrots is you can actually eat the tops. They're delicious in salads, and a lot of people don't know that. So I'm just going to pull a test pull here. Now when I'm harvesting my carrots, I kind of like to put my finger around the top to see how big they are and if they're ready to pull. This one looks kind of small, but the baby carrots are nice and sweet, and we have had some cool nights. So this carrot is probably going to be absolutely delicious, and it definitely is a little baby carrot. So what I need to do is get in here and thin my carrots out so they have more room to grow and develop bigger roots. And it's definitely not too late to do this, even at this size. Now, when you're planting carrot seeds, something to keep in mind is that a mistake a lot of people make is that they let the soil dry out and it gets that kind of crust on top. You know what I'm talking about? And when it gets dry and crusty, the carrots are not going to germinate. So if you've ever been frustrated about your carrots not germinating, this might be why. So I'm just going to plant actually a few more in the front of my little container here. They do grow really, really nicely in containers because the soil is nice and loose, and that way they have loose soil to grow nice roots. So just going to sprinkle a few seeds here in the front. And you probably want a container that's a little bit more clear of plants. I'm kind of going to crowd these in here just to kind of show you how to plant them. Sprinkle them on the top of the soil and then just really lightly cover them with soil. Not too much because the seeds are tiny. And again, if you put too much soil on top, they're just not going to germinate. Just kind of tamp them down a little bit and then keep them well watered. If you've got drip irrigation, that's the ideal situation. But if not, make sure you check them every day so that soil doesn't dry out. And you can cover them with a piece of burlap or even a board to keep the soil moisture in. The next crop you southern gardeners have got to plant this month are beets. Now, a lot of you I know have struggled with growing beets in the warm weather. If you tried planting in August or September, you might have just gotten a lot of tops, a lot of beet greens, but no roots. And that's because beets don't like hot weather. When it's too hot, they're not going to grow roots. So now's the perfect time. Now, beet seeds, these are the Golden Detroit beets from my Fall Garden Seed Collection. And by the way, the Fall Garden Seed Collection has all these vegetables in it, lots of different varieties. So all you need to really get is one seed collection. You've got it all. You see how these beet seeds are little pods? Well, they actually have several seeds in each pod. So the mistake a lot of people make is they plant their beets too closely together and then they don't have enough room. What you want to do if you can is, first of all, not plant them too thickly. So just take a pinch of seeds and just kind of drop a seed every couple of inches or so. I mean, don't stress about it too much. You don't have to get too worried or, stressed out about it. Just do what you can. And then go back in later once they germinate. They should germinate in about 7 to 10 days, as long as your temperature is fairly cool, under 75. After they've been growing about 2 weeks or so, and just thin them out So they're only about 2 inches apart. So you just want to take a small pair of scissors and just snip the extra stems right at the base of the soil. Don't pull them out because then you'll disturb the roots. That way you've got plenty of room for your beet roots to grow. And these golden Detroit beets are the most beautiful golden color. They'll roast up beautifully in your oven and be nice and sweet and tasty in your winter dishes. We just love them. The next super easy root vegetable are radishes. And I love radishes because you can harvest them in as little as 3 weeks. So easy to plant, it's really a December no-brainer. So I've got a little empty spot here, and you don't need to go crazy with the soil here. I'm just gonna kind of rough my soil up a little bit. You can see I still have my dahlia stems in here from the summertime, even some weeds. No big deal. Radishes are so easy to grow and are fairly forgiving as well. And I'm gonna pop in some of the watermelon radishes, which are absolutely gorgeous pink radish. And the biggest mistake that people make with radishes is overfeeding them. And my fix for this is just to skip the fertilizer. If you give them too much nitrogen, they're gonna grow a lot more leaves and not enough roots. So you don't need to go crazy with the fertilizer. You do wanna add maybe a little bit of extra potting mix or amend your soil just a little bit. And I'm just gonna kind of broadcast these in here. Don't think too hard about it, just get your seeds planted and then cover them kind of lightly with soil. And they're gonna germinate probably in about 5 to 7 days. And like I said, you can be harvesting them in as little as 3 weeks with the proper temperatures. Now you can also eat the radish tops, the radish greens. They're super delicious. So if you get a heat wave or a hot spell in your southern garden and they don't bulb up, it's not all gone to waste. Still eat those greens. They're absolutely delicious. Another great thing about radishes is because they grow so fast, you can actually interplant them with other vegetables. And you're gonna harvest them before the other vegetables are ready. So for example, I planted some radishes in here. I could also pop in some broccoli, which is much slower growing, or even some peas around this trellis. Harvest the radishes and they're not going to rob nutrients from the other vegetables that I'm going to plant here. The next category of vegetables these southern gardeners have to start this month in December are the brassicas, your broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. However, do yourself a favor and grow smaller, more compact varieties that'll be a lot easier to harvest. One of the biggest problems I have is heat in the wintertime, and the only way I can get a harvest from my broccoli is if I grow a smaller variety like the DeCisco broccoli in my fall garden seed collection. And winter is the best time to grow the brassicas because there's fewer pests. One of the biggest problems I have with brassicas are aphids. And I've actually done a little bit of protection here on my, I think it's the broccoli in this container, or it's actually the igloo cauliflower. Not only from the aphids, but from the squirrels. We've had tons and tons of squirrel issues lately as well. So this is the igloo cauliflower. It's a smaller, more compact variety like the DeCisco broccoli, which you can harvest in about 60 days, as opposed to 90 days with the traditional varieties. Now you can definitely start direct seed in containers, and I do like to grow as much as I can in containers in the winter because then I can move them around to chase the sun. You can start them from seed directly, or you can start them from seed indoors and then they'll be ready to put outdoors in about 4 to 6 weeks, which still does give you some time to harvest them before the temperatures get too hot in the early spring. Now, one of the keys to success for you southern gardeners is to make sure that you're chasing the sun, especially with your brassicas, because they are a little bit larger of vegetables. They do need more sun in order to get the delicious igloo cauliflower heads or the broccoli heads. So do yourself a favor, grow them in containers so that way you can move them into the sunniest spot of your garden. Here I've got about a 7-gallon container, which should be adequate for the igloo cauliflower. Now, you do have to make sure though that you add new amendment to your containers when you plant a new crop. So I popped in some of the Master Nursery Gardener's Gold potting soil, which I really like. It's got good nutrients for your broccoli to thrive and your cauliflower to thrive. Plus it has perlite, which is really going to help with the moisture retention. And this is available at your local Master Nursery Independent Garden Center. This is the version that's available in the Eastern and Midwest states. And I'm trying it out here and really like it. So you can see this igloo cauliflower is planted fairly close together. I always like to overplant. Another little tip or CALIKIM hack that I like to do is overplant several different seedlings in here, because chances are one of them might not make it due to squirrels or bugs or whatever, and then I can just clip out or thin out the smallest seedling by cutting it at the base, and that way I always have some backup plants going, or I can dig it up and transplant it somewhere else if I want to. So my broccoli here is just about ready to start heading up. And I think I put this in here in about September time frame, and it has struggled a bit in our heat, but you can see it's growing very nicely. A few holes in the leaves, but all in all, I should be getting some heads on my broccoli very quickly. Now let's pop over here and look at the Michelini cabbage, which is one of my favorite varieties as well. The Michelini cabbage is one of my all-time favorite varieties because it's so much easier to harvest or come to harvest here in Southern California than those big old round varieties. It's a long Napa Asian variety, super tender, and we love it in stir fries. It's so delicious, and it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous vegetable as well. And it comes to harvest in about 60 to 70 days, as opposed to 90 to 100 days for the big old round heads. So it just works really well for me here in my southern garden. So what you might want to do is start some indoors, and get them planted outside, and then also direct seed them in your containers too. So that way you have harvest coming at different times, because there's only so much cabbage you can eat at once, right? So I've got it here again in my 7-gallon little whiskey barrel planter. I just love these. I'll put the link to all the supplies I use in the video description. And in this one, I amended it with some of the Master Nursery organic potting soil, the bumper crop, that is available in Western regions. And the thing I love about the bumper crop soils, because they're formulated and manufactured regionally, they have ingredients that work well for the area that you live in, and they're very, very cost effective, and they work absolutely great. Now, when you're growing in containers, the other super, super important thing to keep in mind is watering, because we get those random hot days. We're not always getting rain in southern climates. So you do need to make sure these are consistently watered, or obviously you're not going to grow well. So I always like to pop in my drip irrigation stakes, my Mr. Landscaper pot sprayer. I really like this one. It gives kind of a nice downward spray here on the plants, so you don't get water all over, and it does put out quite a bit of water at once. So I actually hooked it into my irrigation right here in my bed, and they get watered whenever these micro sprayers are on. And the cool thing about these pot sprayers is that you can actually adjust this knob for more water flow or less water flow depending on your plant's needs. Now, even though I don't have as many problems with pests in the wintertime, there's absolutely nothing I hate worse than coming out in the garden after I just planted something and seeing holes in the leaves. So I've got pill bugs and earwigs quite often. So I'm going to use some of the Monterey Sluggo Plus. I've used this for years. It takes care of not only the slugs and the snails, which aren't quite as bad this time of the year, but the earwigs and pill bugs that always seem to like my new little seedlings. So I just like to sprinkle some down whenever I plant something. And the earwigs and pill bugs are drawn to the bait. They take that bait, they go somewhere else and die, and then I don't see any more holes in my leaf. So it really is a win-win. And this is by Monterey. I'll put a link below for this one as well. It's really a game changer. Next up for southern gardens in December are greens. You absolutely cannot, I repeat, cannot go through your winter without planting greens. And why they work so well in December and in the wintertime for southern gardens is because there's no heat. And without heat, your greens are going to be so much sweeter, and they're not going to bolt near as fast. So I've got a whole bunch of greens planted here in my chill zone raised bed. But I got to tell you, in case you're wondering why this whole thing looks like some type of fortress, is because it is a fortress. It's a fortress against the digging squirrels. I got to show you real quick what they did over here in this garden bed. They actually got underneath my tool and dug all through my arugula that was just coming up. I was so mad. So what I did over in the chill zone raised bed is create a literal fortress with clips, tool, bricks. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there's no way the squirrels can get underneath this. But as we all know, squirrels are relentless. So as you're pulling out your summer crops, you want to get some lettuce planted in those same areas. It just makes it really simple. But don't forget to amend your soil, because you definitely need some fresh nutrients. In this garden bed, I use the Master Nursery Gold Rush. It's an all-purpose soil conditioner with chicken manure, which is already fully composted. It's great because not only does it loosen hard compacted soils, it conserves soil moisture, and it actually doubles as a mulch for your soil. I had some lettuce that I'd started from seed indoors. I popped the starts in here. All kinds of beautiful varieties you want to plant in December. And you definitely want to plant the rainbow of lettuce. Royal Oak Leaf, Prize Head, Marble Four Seasons, the Garden Jewel Green Mix from my fall garden seed collection. Put as many different colors, varieties, and textures of greens as you can in your December garden, because that'll make your salads so beautiful. and so tasty. You've got some kind of spicy ones, some sweet ones, and we just updated not only the fall garden seed collection with new varieties of lettuces in there as well, but also the lettuce garden seed collection, so you have plenty of options to choose from. So I did start some seeds indoors for this, but you can also very easily this time of the year just plant seeds right in your garden beds. It's so easy to direct seed. Just broadcast it through your hands like this. You can kind of press it down. You don't even have to cover the soil. It likes light to germinate. Keep it watered, and you're gonna be able to harvest it in about 4 to 6 weeks with a little bit of luck if the squirrels don't get it first. Besides of planting tons of lettuce in your garden, which by the way is also frost tolerant, so if you get a frost, you'll be doing okay, definitely plant some containers of greens. Now this is one I'm super excited to grow. This is called Black Magic Kale. And again, in a container, I can move it in the sun, move it in the shade if it gets too hot. It's just kind of starting off now. You can direct seed kale. Not only is it extremely cold tolerant, but heat tolerant on those warm Southern California days. And don't forget your chard over here. The same thing, easy to grow from seed. It's just a no-brainer here, guys. I've had this chard growing for several years. Heat tolerant, cold tolerant. It's such a workhorse, and you could even transplant it to various areas of your garden and it just keeps on growing. Now for your northern gardeners, don't think I've forgotten about you. Before we get to the fast growing crops, there definitely is at least one crop that you can plant outside right now, and that is garlic. Now, even if your ground is still frozen, you can definitely still plant some garlic. Your best friend, again, is going to be containers. So we did a whole video on how to plant garlic a couple months back. Go back and watch that video. You can definitely plant in containers, even put it in a sheltered location or up against your house. You may see some green growth over the winter time, or you may not, depending on where you live. But garlic loves to have that long winter's nap, that period of cold where it goes dormant and then it pops up again in spring. So garlic will be something you can plant this month. If you have a cold frame or cover, you can plant some of those super cold hardy greens, like collard greens, like kale and chard that I was talking about earlier. And that way you can still have some greens outdoors in the winter time. But now let's get to those fast growing crops. You're gonna wanna focus on an indoor windowsill or indoor kitchen garden right now. Keep it simple, keep it smaller, more compact vegetables. Like your lettuces, you can grow in this small little container under grow lights. You can grow a nice little herb container garden. You can grow a smaller, more compact tomato like this red cherry tomato. It's a dwarf tomato, only gets to about 18 inches tall. Mine is just getting ready to flower here under my grow lights. And another thing I'm absolutely loving this month is this tiny little mini bell tomato. And this one is looking really good. They've been under my grow lights, flowering and starting to get nice little tiny peppers. Now, 2 of these crops are going to be so super quick to grow inside, and that would be your lettuce, and then the fastest growing crop of all are microgreens. Now, you can harvest microgreens in about 7 to 10 days. Now, I showed you how to plant all these in an indoor garden on last month's What to Plant in November video. So if you missed that video, especially you northern gardeners want to go back and watch that for all the information on how to plant these vegetables. And you can also grab my indoor garden seed collection and my microgreen seed collection, which will have tons of vegetables that you can grow indoors to beat those winter blues and still have some fresh food to harvest over the winter time. Do yourself a favor though, get them planted this month, because come January, your garden's gonna be under snow, it's gonna be cold. It's really gonna give you a nice lift to be harvesting something indoors when you can't get outside in your garden. That's it for this episode of What to Plant in December. I think the biggest mistake you can make this month is not to plant anything and not have any fresh food to harvest in a couple of months. And I'm curious, what did you learn from this video that you're gonna go out and take action on this week? I'll be reading your comments. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time in the garden.